Welcome to the Wealth Wisdom, where knowledge becomes power and power builds your future.
What if I told you that every major financial collapse in history, every panic, every recession, every market crash that seemed random or unexpected wasn't as chaotic as it looked? What if beneath every disaster, no matter the century or the country, there has always been the same hidden pattern, the same silent architecture, the same blueprint? A blueprint so old it predates modern banking, so consistent it borders on eerie, and so powerful that governments, corporations, and entire nations have bent under its weight without even realizing it. And here's the real mystery. Why do the same mistakes keep happening? Why does the same system collapse in the same way, again and again? And how is it that the people at the top always seem to walk away unharmed, even rewarded, while ordinary citizens pay the price? Today, we're going deep into the shadowy mechanics behind financial catastrophe, not the headlines, not the simplified explanations politicians throw at you, but the actual blueprint, the hidden design, behind every major collapse the world has ever seen. Once you see it, you won't unsee it, and you'll understand why the next crisis won't be an accident, but an inevitability. But to truly decode it, we need to go back to the beginning. Before Wall Street, before central banks, before financial markets took their modern form, because the seeds of today's crashes were planted long before the world even had stock exchanges. Our story starts with something deceptively simple: trust. Hundreds of years ago, money wasn't money as we know it. It was gold, silver, commodities, things with physical value. But as trade expanded, carrying metal became dangerous and inconvenient. People needed a safer system. So early bankers emerged as trusted custodians. You gave them your gold. They gave you a paper receipt. That receipt traveled faster than gold ever could. It was lighter, easier, and soon, everyone started treating these receipts as money itself. It was the first transformation of finance, and it opened the door to the first hidden mechanism in the blueprint: leverage. Bankers quickly realized something shocking. Most people never came back for their gold at the same time. So if a vault held 1,000 coins, why not lend out 800 of them to earn interest? They kept just enough on hand to satisfy day-to-day withdrawals and lent out the rest in secret. It worked beautifully until one day it didn't. When rumors spread that a bank didn't have enough gold to cover people's deposits, everyone rushed to withdraw at once. And suddenly, the entire system collapsed. This wasn't a glitch. It was the blueprint revealing itself for the first time. Every boom built on leverage eventually triggers a panic. Every panic exposes the truth. And once the truth is exposed, everything falls apart. This cycle, repeated across Europe and Asia for centuries. Borrowing, expansion, overconfidence, fear, collapse. The pattern never changed. But then came the turning point that altered the world forever: the birth of central banking. When the Bank of England was founded in the 1600s, it didn't just issue notes. It became the lender of last resort, the first institution capable of stopping financial collapse with emergency money. But it also introduced something more subtle: the idea that the financial system could grow bigger than its own reserves. bigger than gold, bigger than physical limits. The blueprint evolved. Now the cycle wasn't just leverage and collapse. It became leverage, expansion, fear, collapse, and rescue. Rescue changed everything. Rescue meant survival. Rescue meant confidence. Rescue meant the people taking risks no longer paid the price when things went wrong. That price shifted downward to workers, savers, and taxpayers. But even rescue couldn't eliminate the blueprint. It only made the cycles bigger. Fast forward to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The world is industrializing at a speed never seen before. Railroads, steel companies, telegraphs, entire nations are being built on borrowed money. The blueprint started spinning faster and faster. Every period of prosperity was built on mountains of credit. Every credit boom outpaced the real economy. And when the cracks showed, collapse followed. Deeper than before. Then came 1907. The American banking system was fragmented and chaotic. A sudden panic swept through the country. Depositors lined up outside banks. Markets crashed. It was chaos until one man stepped in, J.P. Morgan, a single powerful banker single-handedly, stopped the collapse by injecting his own money into failing institutions. This moment exposed something terrifying. The system was now so fragile that one man could prevent or trigger a national collapse. The blueprint wasn't theoretical anymore, it was real. Observable, undeniable. And that's when the United States created the Federal Reserve in 1913. This wasn't just a new institution. This was the institutionalization of the blueprint. A central bank that could expand credit, manipulate interest rates, rescue failing institutions, and decide who lived and who died during collapse. It was supposed to stabilize the system. It did the opposite. Less than 20 years later, the world descended into the single greatest economic collapse in modern history, the Great Depression. Why? Because the same blueprint repeated itself in a more explosive form. The 1920s boom was a masterpiece of speculation stocks bought on margin, easy loans, soaring prices, blind optimism. Everyone believed the new financial tools had eliminated risk forever. But the truth was the opposite. Risk hadn't disappeared. It had multiplied. And when confidence cracked in 1929, the crash was unstoppable. Millions lost their jobs. Factories went silent. Families lost everything. Yet some of the largest banks didn't fall, they expanded. They bought smaller banks at a discount. They seized assets. They positioned themselves for the rebound. The blueprint didn't just predict collapse. It predicted who would suffer and who would rise. Decades later, after World War II, governments tried to tame the system. They introduced regulations, separation laws, oversight. For a moment, the world experienced stability. But the blueprint never disappeared. It simply went dormant. And then, starting in the 1970s, everything changed again. Deregulation returned. Globalization began. Money moved faster. Debt grew cheaper. Computers accelerated markets. Financial engineering created new instruments, derivatives, swaps, securitized loans. Tools so complex even experts struggled to understand them. The world entered the most explosive chapter of the blueprint yet. By the time the 1990s arrived, The seeds of collapse had already been planted. Hedge funds grew massive. Banks merged. Wall Street invented exotic products that bundled risky loans into safe packages. It looked innovative. It looked modern. It looked unstoppable. But underneath the surface, the same old pattern pulsed steadily. Leverage, overconfidence, hidden risk, illusion of stability, collapse waiting to happen, and then, almost exactly on cue, 2008 arrived. It wasn't just a housing crisis. It wasn't just bad loans. It was the blueprint unfolding with ruthless precision. The same events, the same incentives, the same blind spots that caused collapses hundreds of years ago repeated themselves word for word. This time, it was global. Millions lost their homes. Millions lost their savings. Jobs vanished. Entire economies crumbled. Yet again, the institutions most responsible for the disaster were rescued. They were declared too big to fail, which is just another way of saying too powerful to suffer consequences. Once again, collapse concentrated power instead of destroying it. Even after governments swore they'd never let this happen again, they repeated the blueprint one more time only in a new form. In 2020, when the world shut down, central banks printed money at unprecedented levels. Trillions flooded the system. Rates dropped to zero. Debt exploded. And for a brief moment, everyone thought the crisis had been prevented. But it hadn't. It was only delayed, shifted, expanded, because the blueprint never breaks. And today, inflation, rising interest rates, housing shortages, and government debts at historic highs are all pointing to the same destination the world has reached over and over again. Let's look at the repeating signs. Whenever debt grows faster than income, collapse follows. Whenever credit becomes cheap, speculation surges. Whenever governments promise they can outsmart cycles, cycles intensify. Whenever people believe this time is different, it never is. The blueprint behind financial collapse is not chaos, it's a predictable chain of cause and effect. It's a machine that operates the same way no matter where or when. And the people who understand it always position themselves ahead of the crash, while those who don't get crushed. But if you've watched this far, here's what truly matters. You now understand the pattern. So what can you take away from all of this? First, whenever you see rapid expansion, whether in housing, stocks, crypto, or credit, understand that expansion always carries the seeds of collapse. Rapid rises are not signs of strength. They are warnings. Second, understand that during every crisis, the people who suffer most are the ones who don't prepare. Collapses don't destroy wealth. They transfer it. They move it from the uninformed to the informed. And third, prepare for the future by learning how the system truly works. Not the version in textbooks, but the version history shows us. The version where cycles are inevitable and collapses are built into the very foundation of modern finance. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The next collapse isn't coming someday. It's already forming right now. And when it hits, the blueprint will unfold the same way it always has. If this opened your eyes or helped you see what lies beneath the surface, share it. Help others understand the pattern. And if you want more deep, honest explorations into the systems that shape our lives, from money to power to global. Influence. Hit subscribe and stay connected. We're just getting started.